So initially, I just posted a picture on Instagram, what barriers get in the way of mental illness recovery. So thank you to everybody who responded to that, because there were a ton of great responses that really explored the gamut. Then there was one message that came up. It was from a woman named Chloe.
So my name's Chloe Sutton. I'm from Newcastle, Australia, and I run a business called the Self Care Sisterhood, which is a personal training business for women with mental illness, and chronic pain. I started it because I also suffer all those things. I have bipolar 2 disorder, irritable bowel syndrome, endometriosis, a really severe food intolerance, and I've got chronic migraines. So I've got all the things.
So in response to the question, what barriers get in the way of recovery from mental illness, she said, lack of education from health professionals. I got a Post-it note when I got diagnosed. Money to get necessary appointments. A hard time finding a therapist I click with. Have had a few bad ones, aka you're getting panic attacks because you're not trying hard enough. When it turns out I had lithium toxicity and that was the cause. And so I saw that, and she touched on a bunch of different things in that message that I thought were interesting to explore when talking about barriers to recovery. And so I reached out to Chloe, and we sat down to do a little interview, and here's what we talked about.
So at 21, I got diagnosed with bipolar 2, which was a relief, but also terrifying because we had family friends who had a son with bipolar, and he passed away from suicide. And so for me, it was like, oh, I don't know any perspective of people thriving with bipolar. So that was my only perspective on it. And then also the medical professionals that I encountered. So when I got diagnosed, I went with my best friend, Steph, because she was like, look, Chloe, vacuuming at 3 a.m. isn't really normal. So I was like, oh, okay, perspective. And I remember leaving the office from the government health place that we went to. We were in there for ages. And I got given a Post-it note. After being diagnosed, I thought, oh, I'm going to be like my auntie had cancer and she got like a whole folder full of stuff. I got a freaking Post-it note. I was like, is this a joke? Like, am I on like, is this like a joke? Like, and we got to the coffee shop and we both just sat there afterwards, like just stunned mullets, like just, that's an Australian term. So like just really no idea what's going on. And I just remember going, what do I do next? Like there's no next step. There needs to be a handbook for women when they get diagnosed. There's no how-to. And then that progressed to going with psychology, which I'd been in for a long time, but went to a new psychologist. And I think I was probably about a year after being diagnosed, probably 2 years. She goes to me, I just don't think you're trying hard enough. And that just gutted me. I was like, I'm going to swear. I'm like, excuse me, bitch. Like, no, that's not okay. And I remember feeling like really disempowered, and I never experienced that before because my old psychologist, who was like a family connection, who was a psychotherapist, he did it a lot different to the way she did it. So I didn't even know there's styles of therapy. No one told me that either. So, and then you don't always click with certain styles, and some styles might not be best for your condition. So, and yeah, so I remember her saying to me, just not trying hard enough, your panic attacks, you just need to implement these strategies. And I'm like, so frustrated. I was like, I'm doing my breathing exercises, I'm doing my positive thinking, I'm journaling the crap. Like I have 18 journals at home, I'm exercising, like this is not going away. And then 2 months later, I think it was 2 or 3 months later, I got hospitalized with lithium toxicity and ended up getting my body flushed out. And after that, my panic attacks never came back. So that really frustrated me because I was like, this is a medical problem. And it was kind of, there are going to be some bad therapists, but there are some amazing ones that will empower you. So I think, yeah, I had a bit of just the whole kit and caboodle of experiences. And then when I was in hospital for lithium toxicity, which wasn't my fault, it wasn't intentional whatsoever, I got a lot of negative feedback from the hospital staff. So I was put in the short stay ward. I was stripped on my phone. I wasn't allowed to have my phone. It was like so disempowering again because I was like, but I didn't try to commit suicide and I'm not suicidal. I'm having all these symptoms. I'm feeling really unwell, but I'm not at risk to myself. And so I remember being disempowered in that way. And actually when getting sent home, I had no clothes because they gave them to my husband. He went to work. And when my dad picked me up 2 days later, I got sent home in, so this is probably going to make you laugh. I got sent home in a bikie t-shirt. Like, it was like as big as a dress. And that's what I wore out of the hospital. Had no shoes.
Okay, this is Mark. I got to jump in here. Because so Chloe just got sent home from the hospital in a big t-shirt, right? No shoes, just a big t-shirt. Earlier, right, she got sent away from the clinic after getting a diagnosis with bipolar. All she got was a Post-it note. Stories like these, unfortunately, come into Everybody Has a Brain all of the time, on YouTube, on social media, on the website. Consistently, what we see is that in the mental health care system, we're really terrible at transitions. And those transitions have such an impact on how that person is going to do from there on out. Too often, this is the beginning of a relapse. This is the beginning of an episode of disaster that just lands the person in another ER or at another hospital. If you're a professional listening to this, know that care extends beyond the walls of your hospital or your clinic or whatever. We have to get better at these kinds of transitions, these kinds of exits. If you're a patient or a family caregiver, be very watchful and aware of what happens on those transitions, because we can't rely on the system to do them well, because consistently they do them very poorly. Fixing transitions is going to take a whole shift in how we approach mental health as a society, because it's about how mental health care gets funded, how healthcare professionals are taught, and so on, because we still very much take this medical model approach, and many patients do this as well. This idea that somehow I'm going to go into a hospital, I'm going to go into a clinic, and the problem is fixed there. But recovery from mental illness is a complex process of changes. It's a journey. When we leave the hospital, in many ways, is when the work actually starts. And now we'll go back to Chloe, who's going to share some of her tips for navigating this complex journey of recovery.
I think also the thing with therapy, so I was going to say, is it's hard. It will be exhausting, so be prepared that it will be exhausting, but it's the best work you can do for yourself. And if I say out of anything that I've done in my recovery, it's that I was consistent with my therapy. So I think I've only missed, in the last 4 years, I think I've only missed 1 or 2 appointments because of my either my chronic illness, or I had something severe happen, or something like an event I couldn't miss. So I was really consistent. And that consistency, I think, really enabled me to get momentum with my negative thinking patterns and any barriers that I had, to be obstacles. And being consistent means that you're not leaving it too long, so that you're keeping those symptoms in check that are hard for you. So for me, it's really bad anxiety or really, really negative thinking patterns. A lot of the time, it's just helping you be aware of those things. And when you're aware, like, I love that quote by Maya Angelou. It's like, when you know better, you can do better. So when you're aware of the issue, you can then be more aware when it happens. Oh, another one is being compliant with your medication. I know that takes a lot of trust to do. Let the medication do its work. And then when you get to a certain period where your doctor says, how are you feeling? Is it not working? Are you having any extreme symptoms? Then tell them and then go through that process. But yeah, be really honest with them about what you're going through. Because I had an experience with my chronic migraine medication where I actually lost function of my arm and my leg and I was slurring my words. Turns out the medication I was having an allergic reaction to. Went to the doctors. He said, oh yeah, I'll give you a new script. Went back down to the pharmacy. They said, he's given you the same medication but in a generic brand name. So I was like, what? Like, I don't want to take this again. Like, I lost function of my arm and leg. Like, this is really scary. So if you have any extreme symptoms, talk to your pharmacist as well, because they will give you a breadth of knowledge that doctors may miss when they're trying to get through patients all the time. They've got a limited space of time to really care for you, which is hard, but a reality of the medical world.
Yeah, you're the one basically playing quarterback for all of these different issues. Because even just looking at that, like that really balanced perspective of what it's like to interact with the healthcare system. You know, sometimes they're going to make mistakes. We also have to be consistent. You have to ask questions. They're sometimes going to be awesome, sometimes going to be stigmatizing. and sometimes send you home in a moo-moo with the wrong medication, and then other times give you the most useful resources. We have a lot of community members in Everybody Have the Brain community that are dealing with chronic illnesses as well as then mental health challenges. And so being consistent with everything is challenging. Do you have any tips on like how you help yourself stay consistent, whether it's with therapy, whether it's with medication?
I think one thing, and don't overwhelm yourself, because I feel like something I've learned as I'm training as a wellness coach as well, is that we like to set ourselves millions of goals and we scatter all our energy across those goals and none of them get done well. My psychologist said to me, like, what do you want to do? Like, what's your one goal? And I said to my hubby, can you keep me accountable? So it was making that goal, setting it, and putting reminders. So I literally put like post-it notes come back again, put them everywhere. So I put them back at the toilet door, I put them in the kitchen, like everywhere just to remind me, because when I was in that space, I had the memory of a sieve. So I had extreme pain and then having quite severe bipolar 2 symptoms. My brain was like a fried egg. Like I didn't know what was going on half the time. For me, I would just put a little post-it note, or what might work for some people is having an alarm on your phone. So I would remind myself a day before the therapy appointment so I could mentally prepare myself for it, and then an hour before. So in case I'd forgotten, I got there on time. And really, I think reminding yourself why you're doing it. So for me, with my exercise and what I tell my girls, Self-Care Sisterhood, is our philosophy is she moves for her mind. So having that quote in your head that can help propel you to that action. I kept reminding myself when I went to therapy, I'm doing this for my mind. If I get anything else out of this, apart, awesome. But I'm going for my mind first, and then that kind of helps you reset. I think for me anyway, thinking pattern of, okay, are these thoughts coming from an anxious place, or am I having, intrusive thoughts, or am I just not wanting to go?
In a conversation I was having with Matt earlier this month about recovery, he talked a lot about similar things to what Chloe was talking about, so I let him listen to Chloe's interview, and here are some thoughts he had on that. So I really liked that Chloe brought up that concept of staying consistent as being really important, because I think that's something, Matt, I've noticed in your toolbox about recovery skills, and just in general that you've always talked about, that seems so important and useful to your own work. Like, what do you think about it?
It got me thinking about kind of how I've approached things since I started working for myself, which was trying to think about how I think. So knowing that certain things will act as triggers to my anxieties or feelings of depression helps me kind of predict, okay, if I know I'm going to be in a situation where I'm exposed to those things, then here are ways to deal with it. And I know those ways now versus before, where I didn't, and it would just end up cycling over and over again. It's just weird because it seems so simple, but it's like, just staying consistent, like keep doing the things that work for you over and over again.
I want to send a huge thank you out to Chloe. Thank you for sharing your story with us about the things you struggled with and the things you're doing to take care of your mental health now. And thank you for the work you're doing, Chloe, to help people on that journey as well. I want to finish off here with a story that Chloe shared. As she's telling this, keep in mind that she's running her own business now. Running your own business is like, on a good day, like having 3 full-time jobs. She's helping people take care of their mental and physical health through her work. Here is what 2 doctors once told her about her future employment prospects.
I actually got told by 2 sets of doctors, a neurologist and a psychiatrist, that I would never work full-time with my conditions, and I just need to accept my symptoms and just work to manage them. And I was like, and then I think because I'm a pretty gritty person, like I've got a lot of, I'm like a bulldog, I'm pretty stubborn. I was like, I'm going to prove you guys wrong. And I did. I'm pretty excited about that. But yeah, I got told by them that, that I would never work full time. I would never go back to full-time work. Wouldn't be able to handle it with my symptoms. And I think 2 years later, owning my own business. So yeah, stuff you guys.